Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Works Podcast. So glad that you guys are here today. And this is actually our first episode for season number 5. So after a lot of sporadic episodes that we had over the last 5 years, we are back in full force here to give a platform to whoever desire to have a platform. So this time around, we have the midterm elections that are coming up. There are people that are running for county offices, and there are people that are running for state offices here in the state of Alabama. And so today we have one of those candidates here. This is Felicia Rucker-Sumerlin. She
Yes.
is running for the Democrat nomination for Jefferson County Sheriff. Thank you so much for being a part of this platform. So
Thank you
first
for
of
having me.
all, tell everybody who you are and why you're running.
Well, my name is Felicia Rucker-Sumerlin. I am a retired deputy chief with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. I spent 31 years of my life as a sheriff's deputy. The reason I am running is because I like to make a change. There's some things that are going on in our county with our deputies, with our citizens that I was aware of before I retired, and I realized that I couldn't make a difference while I was still there at the sheriff's office. One of those things is the homicide rate in our county. You know, it's extremely high right now. And in 2013, I lost my son to murder, and he was a veteran of the military. Spent 10 years in the military, 3 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, came back home and was murdered in Birmingham. My son was safer in Iraq and Afghanistan than he was here in Jefferson County. That's one of the reasons why I want to run. I know that I can make a difference in what's going on with our violent crimes in Jefferson County.
We will get to that part later. The homicide rate in Jefferson County, of
Right.
course. I did read the headlines, and it has hit record numbers, and we'll talk a little bit about that later.
Okay.
But what are some of the things that you would like to implement if you are elected sheriff of Jefferson County?
One of the things I like to implement is a violent crimes investigative task force. That task force would consist of not only deputies from Jefferson County, but officers from our neighboring uh, cities, like Birmingham, Vestavia, Hoover, Gardendale, Fultondale. I would like for all of us to work together to combat what's going on in our county. I worked in ID theft. I worked in a task force when I was in ID theft, and those task force, when you work together, they are extremely valuable. I'd also like to involve our citizens in what's going on in our county. And my thought process on that is to have each town or city uh, choose a person that they trust to be on the Citizens Advisory Review Board that's led by the Sheriff's Office. And what that review board would do is they would sit down with us, with our deputies, with our captains, with our deputy chiefs. And when we have allegations of police misconduct, or we have crimes that's going on in the neighborhoods that these citizens want to address, they can sit down with us and come up with a solution for what we have going on. I also want to uh, I also want to reach out, start a victims assistance group. We have one, but it's primarily for domestic violence. But there needs to be somebody in place that can walk our families through what's going on in the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system is difficult enough to navigate on this side as a law enforcement officer. But if you come in as a citizen who has lost your family members, who has been a victim of any type of crime, then I think that we should have somebody there to help you through that process, to help you get a clear understanding of what it is that we need from you as a citizen and that you should expect from us as a law enforcement officer.
It's funny that you mentioned about the citizen review board because Birmingham, under Mayor Randall Whiffen, had established one, but as far as I'm concerned, they are inactive. We have
Wow.
not heard anything from them since its establishment. It consists of
Right.
five people. Really, the people really
Mhm.
don't necessarily know who they are, and they was
Wow.
handpicked by the mayor. And I'm just being real. They was
Right.
handpicked by the mayor, and that posed a real problem when people are, for example, if there's misconduct among officers in the police
Right.
department or management, you really are not getting that accountability
Right.
that the people, the citizens of the city, need. Um, as far as Jefferson County is concerned, what kind of accountability measures, you know, would be in Sheriff Summerlin's sheriff's office? So what does
Okay.
that look like?
So this is what we will do. First off, you need transparency. And the reason I mentioned allowing the citizens to pick their representative, you pick from your community who you want to represent your community, not me. Because I think that if I choose that person or those people to be on the advisory review board, then I'm really not solving the problems. I'm really not helping you at all. For me to help you is to let you buy into it. It's to give you an opportunity to buy into it. And that's by picking your own people. And those people are the ones that serve on the review board. I also think that initially we could meet once a month, the review board, with our deputy chiefs and our division commanders, which would be our captains. They can meet once a month with those people and kind of go over the things that they feel are issues in the community and even in the jail for that matter, because the inmates really don't have anybody on the outside that could kind of help represent them and their needs. Uh, Meet once a month and then meet on a quarterly basis. And the reason I want to do that is you can bring your issues and concerns to me, to the panel, and we review those issues and concerns, and we respond to you not only in actions, but in writing what we're done, what we're going to do. And if it's something that we can't change legally, then we can let you know why we can't change it legally and give you the information that supports why we can't change something legally. I think that when we shouldn't have secrets. The bottom line is taxpayers are paying our salaries. That's who we work for. We're public servants. And they should have some input into what's going on with the deputies that serve their communities and with the people that we're responsible for serving.
Would you say that in terms of, would you say that the relationship between the sheriff's department and the citizens of Jefferson County is it solid one? I mean, how is the relationship between the citizens of Jefferson County and the sheriff's department?
It's not a solid one because what has happened these last couple of years is because of our shortage in deputies, our staffing issues. Uh, the relationship with the citizens and with the sheriff's office has deteriorated. When I was on patrol in '94, and I know that's a long time ago, but we would actually ride around with our windows down. We would, whether it was winter, summer, spring, or fall. The winter time, we just turn the heat up, put our coat on. Summertime, of course, you turn the air on. But so we can hear what's going on in the communities. We get out and we talk to the citizens, we talk to the children, we talk to the elderly people. We also had, up under my leadership as a lieutenant, we had Sergeant Pate. Sergeant Pate he was really good at embracing the citizens. And so what I did with Sergeant Pate is I made him the liaison between the sheriff's office and the community. So when they had problems, when they had issues that wasn't necessarily law enforcement related or and are not necessarily of violent nature or high priority nature, Sergeant Pate would take care of those issues. And that was just in the Bessemer cutoff because that's where I was assigned to work. Sergeant Pate went out in the community. He helped them to start neighborhood watch programs, the ones that didn't have it, the ones that were meeting on a regular basis. He attended their meetings. The citizens that called in and complained, that had complaints that didn't reach the level of criminal activity or high priority, he went and sat down and talked with them, and the complaints went down. They loved him. They were constantly calling the sheriff's office, telling them how wonderful he was, how great the things were that he was doing in the neighborhood. He was responsible for the getting the reserves out to help clean up the neighborhoods, the trash that people were dumping in the neighborhoods. He was sponsored that, not necessarily sponsored financially, but line everything up, get everybody together to make sure our neighborhoods were clean and safe. That ended up under this administration. And so now we go back to one deputy working in Oak Grove, when in 94 we had 4 deputies, 3 deputies and a sergeant in Oak Grove, and Oak Grove has grown since then. It hasn't gotten it. The community hasn't gotten any smaller. Actually, they have brand new subdivisions down there now, and fewer deputies that are actually covering the neighborhoods. So those are things that we need to get back to kind of bridge the gap. If the deputies don't know the citizens and the citizens don't know who's patrolling that area, that's a problem.
Let's talk about a couple of municipalities that are
Okay.
outside of Birmingham, such as Fairfield and Brookside. We know that Fairfield has been under tremendous economic distress, and I think at
Right.
one particular time that the sheriff's department, even took over law enforcement activities for the city of Fairfield, at one time, and then in the Brookside issue, of course, there's major concerns with law enforcement in Brookside. I'm sure you've been following those 2 instances.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on both of those municipalities as far as law enforcement is concerned? And if the sheriff's department have to, step in, what does that look like under your administration?
So I'll start with Fairfield first. It's true that Fairfield was having some financial difficulties, and that's just a known thing throughout this county. Fairfield, a lot of their officers came over to the sheriff's office to work when they were going through the difficulties they were having. We stepped in to offer assistance to Fairfield. Fairfield is trying to make a comeback, and they have officers. They still have officers. They've actually just purchased, I know, at least 5 brand new patrol cars, and their officers are working what you would call their city ordinances. The litter laws, the people that don't get permits for their business or to do work to their homes, stuff like that's what they're doing. And the sheriff's office, they'll actually work in their calls, whether it's a misdemeanor or a traffic accident or a felony. Sheriff's department is working their calls. That's one of the reasons that, like, Oak Grove is short deputies, because those deputies have been reallocated to Fairfield. What I would do as the sheriff, back in the 90s, again, I can go back to the 90s again, when in the early 2000s, we patrolled Brighton. Brighton had the same issues. What we did in Brighton, they had officers. So Brighton's police officers actually worked their misdemeanors, and we worked all of their violent crimes and their felony charges. And because we had the resources to cover those, I would do the same thing for Fairfield. Fairfield officers would have to go back to answering calls, their misdemeanor calls, and even offering backup to us, because it's my understanding that's something that they don't do either. But I would work Fairfield's felonies. We have a detective division, we have evidence tech division, and although we don't really have the manpower right now because of the staffing issues, but we're better able to handle their felonies than they are. So that I would do for Fairfield. As far as Brookside goes, Brookside has been an ongoing problem that most people were aware of. The sheriff's office had a responsibility when they were notified about allegations of misconduct through Brookside. They had a responsibility to at least start the investigation, do a report. If you want to give it back to Brookside to investigate, then give it back to Brookside to investigate. If it continues, then you take it to the DA's office. Or if it's something that rises to the level of a criminal act, then you don't give it back necessarily to them to investigate. Because if you look at their page, they were actually threatening the citizens that were complaining on Facebook. So would I really give that back to them? No. I would go to the DA's office, my local DA's office, and run it by them, because we can always screen things to them. And they'll either say, yes, we'll take this, or no, we'll send this over to the AG's office. That's something that could have been done. That's something that should have been done with Brookside. The things that was going on in Brookside should never have gone on for the years that it actually transpired.
Let's talk a little bit about the historic homicide numbers for Jefferson County. What do you see? We know some things are, well, I haven't really heard, anyone, actually talk about what they plan on doing to bring down those numbers. Any thoughts on what can be done to bring down those numbers? So when you think of Jefferson County, you really don't think record homicide rates,
Right.
In terms of Central Alabama. You think of Birmingham, and
Right.
we know that Birmingham tied the record for the number of homicides in 2020.
Right.
And then the city of Birmingham had exceeded that number in 2021. But when it comes to Jefferson County, you don't hear too much, about that. But now I'm reading that, it has become, a major problem. What do you see? What patterns do you see, with that, and what do you believe needs to be done to bring down those numbers?
So one of the things is going to be staffing. We got to get our numbers up. It's kind of difficult to be proactive on the streets when you don't have the manpower that you need. What's happening right now is our guys are being reactive. The only thing they're pretty much doing is answering calls and responding from one call to the next. In Birmingham City's call volume is extremely high. What would I do? First, I get our numbers up. That's the first thing. Secondly, our children. They have just about zero conflict resolution skills. In school, if they fight back, if they're jumped on and they fight back, everybody's punished. And so then it flows over into their adulthood. What do you do now when you're jumped on? Well, it seems like they're so frustrated by not being able to defend themselves. Now they're just killing each other. Sounds crazy. When you think in November in Tarrant, my 18-year-old nephew was murdered over at a girl's house, playing a game. Her brother, her boyfriend comes in, her allegedly ex-boyfriend comes in, and they just shoot him. I think that if we get with the school systems, and I think that if we get with corporate America, I think that if we get with the neighborhood leaders, we can come up with some programs for our children, because it has to start somewhere. So I think if we get with those people, I think they'll fund it. I think they'll be more than happy to fund it, because when school is out, our children are breaking into houses. When school is out, our children are just doing all kind of crazy things because they're left just to themselves. They have nothing to do. If we get these corporations and these private citizens and the government to come up with something, especially for our at-risk children to do, then I think that excuse me. I'm sorry. I think that it'll help combat some of the problems. What's going on in the school system? A lot of our children that are at risk can't play sports. They because of their grades, either because of their behavior. So during the school year, they're never patted on the back. They're never given an award. They're never acknowledged for doing something good. How about we come up with something for these kids to do, these at-risk kids to do? How about we pat them on the back? How about we encourage them? How about we just keep them busy throughout the school, throughout the summer, throughout spring break, throughout Christmas break? How about we start some sports teams for them, baseball, basketball, football? How about we take them on trips, and how about we just have some educational classes for them, some conflict resolution classes for them, just something for them to do, and some training for them on what to do in situations that arise when they got a friend that's always talking about hurting somebody, when they have a home life that's just not like it's supposed to be, like it's supposed to be, we have to, as a village, reach out and help our children.
If let's just say a nonprofit or a faith-based organization or church comes to the
Mm,
sheriff's department and say, I have this specific program for,
mhm,
for kids. Will you be
mhm.
willing, as sheriff, will you be willing to work with the grassroots community to
Absolutely.
bring programs to, Jefferson County and possibly the city of
Mhm.
Birmingham,
Absolutely.
in order to keep our young people, busy, and not leading a life of crime?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it takes a village. It's going to take our churches, it's going to take our community leaders, it's going to take our business, it's going to take all of us to work together to come up with a program to keep our children out of trouble, out of harm's way.
So here's the meat of the matter. There's a lot of people that are really edgy and sketchy and lackadaisical, well, not lackadaisical, skeptical of law
Mhm.
enforcement, particularly, what's been happening in cities across America in the past,
Right.
say, 10 to 15 years.
Mhm.
What do you see the sheriff's department in Jefferson County, looking to bring trust, back to the people as far as law enforcement is concerned?
So it's going to go back to us attending those neighborhood watch meetings, attending those community, any of those community meetings that they have, attending events that they have in their communities. It's going to take us getting our numbers up so that our guys can get out and be proactive in the community, getting to know the neighbors, getting to know the children, getting to know the citizens. It's going to take, oh man, trust is a big issue when it comes to us and the citizens. It's going to take some transparency. It's going to take us putting our body camera footage on Facebook so that the citizens can see, not Facebook, but creating a web page so that citizens can see what's really going on behind those cameras. It's going to take us inviting them in to the sheriff's office or inviting them out to the range and having a community day just for the citizens so that they can see us in a different light outside of just answering calls. When they see us, typically what's going on with us is something's wrong. What's going on with them is something's wrong when they see us. We need to allow the citizens to be able to see us in a different light. There was a time that the sheriff's office during the Christmas holidays would have a luncheon that was open to the public. And it would be in the lobby of the Bessemer building, and it would be in the lobby of the downtown headquarters building. And anybody that wanted to come through could come through during that time period and fix them something to eat and move on. But that was giving them an opportunity to see us in a different light. School being in school resources, that helps because the school resource officers build a relationship with the children, build a relationship with the educational staff, and build a relationship with the parents. So then they get to see us in a different light. If the only thing they ever see is us answering calls when something is wrong, us showing up on a wreck, us kicking their doors in when vice and narcotics is executing a search warrant, then we'll never have the relationship that we need to have with the citizens to be effective.
Yeah, I can understand that people, are being edgy, by law enforcement because let's be real, you got some bad officers, and it's
Absolutely.
kind of making the good officers, look bad, and
Right.
they can only do so much to build that trust. So what happens when, you know, you enter that good cop, bad cop scenario, and that good cop does not hold that bad cop accountable?
So everybody, that good cop suffers the consequences. Maybe um, you have to police the police. The police has to police themselves as well. I've always told guys that I work with, I'm not going to prison with you. We have a responsibility to say something. If it's a foolish mistake that he's making, then say something to him, try to get him to stop. If that don't work, then you take it to the next level. You go to a supervisor. And then the supervisor has a duty to document and report what's going on and address the issues. We have this thing called progressive discipline. And what you do in that is, and not nothing criminal now. If you're doing something criminal, that's just a different aspect. That could be grounds for termination. But simple mistakes or just foolish mistakes, then we use progressive discipline to handle those. When it gets to the point that you're breaking the law, that you're violating people's rights or civil rights, and you're breaking the laws, then that's a different animal there. You screen that, you let our criminal division look into that, and you screen a warrant if you have to. Sometimes officers are just, you retire, you resign, you quit, you go, and we'll give you 40 days or 30 days or 20 days suspension, and you go on, but we're going to put you on the do not rehire list. But if it's something criminal, then it has to be criminally investigated. But every officer understands coming in. Now, what they do with that knowledge is another thing. But every officer understands coming in that if you don't tell when your partner is doing something wrong, you're just as responsible as they are, and you will be held just as responsible as they've been held.
Uh, what have there ever been, cases, where, deputy sheriffs have to deal with, domestic disputes and people who are identified as having mental health issues?
Yes. So way back in the 2000s, the sheriff's office hired some social workers, mental health workers, and those guys, I think it was three at the time. They would come out whenever the deputy went to her house and somebody had a mental health issue, and we called those mental health workers, and they would come out to the scene, and they would evaluate them, and then they would make a determination as to whether or not they needed hospitalization, or whether this was something that could wait till in the morning, to the next business day, and get them in to see their doctor. Oftentimes, more often than not, if they were called, they would actually be hospitalized. So deputies have been dealing with people with mental health issues for a while now. The problem that we have is when they break the law, and especially if they commit a violent crime, then we still have to jail them. And once they're jailed, then there's mental health workers in place in the jail that take it from there. And so what that mental health worker would typically do is get with the courts and try to work out an alternative solution to them being in prison for their acts. We'll get them in a mental health hospital, get them stabilized, and then let the courts take it from there.
Believe that the sheriff's department should have a positive working relationship with the court system and the Jefferson County DA's office? If
You
so,
have
why?
to.
If not, why not?
Okay, so you have to. We're all an extension of each other. The process starts with us. We get the call, we make the arrest. Then we get over to the DA's office and we screen the warrant with the DA's office. And from there, if the DA's office gives us a warrant or decide they want to put it on the grand jury, then from there it goes on to the court system. We can't start programs in the jail for the inmates. We can't promise them that in lieu of prosecution that we're gonna let them out if they complete this program. We can't do any of that without the blessings of the court and the DA's office. So you have to have a positive relationship, working relationship with the DA's office and the courts to make any programs that you want to implement in that jail work. Our job is to just detain them until either the courts decide to let them go or they're tried and convicted and sent off to prison. That's all our job is. We have no authority over them other than to detain them. They actually belong to the state until something through the court system or they're released pre-trial until something is done. So we have to have a good relationship with them. If we want to do anything to help these citizens, especially the low crime citizens, the misdemeanor crimes, the bad checks, the failure to appear on traffic citations, the the burglary threes, which is just a low crime burglary, the UBEVs, which is unlawful breaking and entering vehicles. We got to have some type of relationship with the courts so that we can get these people the help that they need.
Okay, we're getting ready to wrap up here. So before we go, two things. Number one, uh, we would like for you to issue your appeal to the voters.
Right. Okay. So I am Felicia Rucker-Sumerlin. I'm running for sheriff. I am the most qualified candidate on the ballot. I am the only candidate that has worked themselves through the ranks. I retired as a deputy chief. I was a deputy, a sergeant, a lieutenant, a captain, and a deputy chief. I have worked primarily just about every single division there is to work in the sheriff's office. There's nothing that I have not done. I understand the budget. I understand the culture of the sheriff's office. I understand the culture of the citizens that we serve. I have worked from Cahaba Heights to Center Point to McCullough to Oak Grove to Edgewater, McDonald's Chapel, and Mo. I know it all. I know it all. And I'm the only candidate on that ballot that has done that. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I am more than qualified. I have walked the walk that a lot of our parents are walking nowadays, losing their children to violence. I've been there and done that. I understand what it takes to navigate the criminal justice system when you've lost your loved one to a violent act. Felicia Rucker-Sumerlin is the only candidate on that ballot that knows what you're going through. She is the only candidate on that ballot that understands the needs of the deputies. She's the only candidate on that ballot that is 100% qualified for this job. I implore you to vote Felicia for sheriff May 24th.
And how can voters reach you if they want more information?
So I have a webpage, and it's feliciaforsheriff.org, and that's FELICIAFORSHERIFF.org. I'm also on Facebook, and that is Felicia Rucker-Sumerlin for sheriff. You can reach me there as well. If you go to my webpage, you can send me a message. I get it in email. On the Facebook page, same thing. You can send me a message through Messenger, and you can go on Facebook and look at my podcast. I've been doing podcasts. We'll Talk Back Tuesdays. I did it all last month, and I think we're going to continue it. It was a pretty good success. My campaign speech is on Facebook. So whatever you want to know about Felicia Rucker-Sumerlin, if you just Google my name, my work speak for me. Not what I put on Facebook, not what I put on my webpage, but if you just Google my name, the works that I have done over my 30 years speaks for me. Thank you.
Thank you. That was phenomenal. Really appreciate you coming on here and giving us a try.
Thank you. Thank you.
My goal is to give everyone who wants to this space to talk about their campaign during this midterm season.
Right.
We'll have other candidates that come on from now through December, but we also will have some special interest topics as well. So we're not just going to do things that are political.
Okay.
We're going to dip into some political subjects as well. We
Right.
will talk about social justice. We will talk about the economy. We will
Right.
talk about young people. Is whatever people have on their mind, is whatever story that they want to share.
Okay.
So we're going to be different than other podcasts that is out there. We know a lot of them are traditionally they talk about certain subjects, but we want to give everyone a platform. As far
Right.
as candidates is concerned, we're giving everybody an opportunity to come up here, whether you're Democratic, Republican, Libertarian, whatever party you're belonging to. If you are running for an office, we want to hear from you, because I'm certainly sure the people want to hear from you guys
Absolutely.
as well. So if there's anything else you want to say before we close out?
Just remember, everyone, Felicia for sheriff, your most qualified candidate, Felicia for sheriff. And I'm the only female on the ballot.
And that's kind of historic within itself, because we never had a woman candidate for sheriff,
Right.
especially in my lifetime, probably in the whole history of Jefferson County, start
Absolutely.
electing sheriffs.
Right.
So should you win the primary on May 24th,
Mhm.
you will be the first woman, not just African American woman, but you'll be the first woman, period, to be
Right.
elected to as sheriff of Jefferson County. How does
Right.
that feel?
Feels pretty good. I've had a career first. In 2016, I was the first female African American female captain. In 2020, I was the first female deputy chief. And of course, fast forward to now, I am actually the first female to qualify to run for sheriff of Jefferson County. So my career has pretty much been a career first.
What would you say to what would you say to young girls who may want to have a career in law enforcement? What is your
Well,
message to them?
they can do it. You don't have to be as strong as a man to be the police or to be a deputy sheriff. It's a male predominated profession, that's for certain. Uh, but it's not impossible. I came in, I did my job. I did not focus on the fact that I was a female. I didn't ask for special privileges because I was a female. I did my job to the best of my ability and it paid off for me. And so for any female that wants to be a law enforcement officer, I implore you to do this. It has been a very beneficial career for me. I have been able to help people that I never thought I'd be able to help. I've met people that I never thought I'd be able to meet. And and because of that, my life is different. It's changed. And so there is a place in law enforcement for females. And we tend to, believe it or not, we tend to handle violent situations or volatile situations a little bit better than the guys. The guys' testosterone get in the way, and they everybody want to fight, whether it's the deputy or the bad guy. For us, we're pretty good at diffusing situations. So we can talk them down, whether they're in the jail, on the street. So females pretty good at talking people down. So the fellas need us. They need us.
Ms. Summerlin, thank you so much for
Thank you for having me.
tuning in, and of course we will follow you on the campaign trail and
Thank you.
see what happens. Best wishes on your campaign, and
Thank you.
we'll see you on May 24th.
May
For the
24th.
results. May
Absolutely.
24th.
Thank
So
you.
this will conclude our podcast for today. We actually have another episode this evening. We will be at 6 p.m. Central Time. We will be talking with Richard Franklin and Terry Michael from the Birmingham chapter of American Federation of Teachers, and they will be talking about another controversial subject, the privatization of public education and
Oh, yeah.
charters, and the truth about charter schools. So you definitely do not want to miss that. That's coming up at 6 p.m. tonight. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
have another episode next. Actually, it will be this coming Wednesday. We'll have another episode of The Works. And on that episode, we kind of give you an idea of what's going to come on this podcast, and we will talk about some of the future guests that we will have on the show, as well as some things that we're trying to do as a platform. So that's Wednesday, April 13th at 6 p.m. Please join us. For now, I'm Keith Williams, your host. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.